On September 8, 2025, Prime Minister Francois Bayrou and his centrist government were removed from power by a dramatic vote of no confidence in the French National Assembly. The session was tense, with lawmakers from all sides debating the future of the country late into the evening. Bayrou, who had come to office promising stability and reform, now faced a parliament that had lost faith in his leadership and his policies. The final tally was decisive. 364 votes against Bayrou and only 194 in his favor. The overwhelming margin made it clear that support for his government had collapsed across the political spectrum. With this vote, Bayrou's challenging 9-month tenure as prime minister came to an abrupt end. He left office amid disappointment, both from his supporters and from those who had hoped for a new direction in French politics. This marks the second time in less than a year that a French prime minister has been ousted by parliament, a rare occurrence that has sent shockwaves through the political establishment and the public alike. Such political instability has not been witnessed in France since 1962, when the country was rocked by a series of government crises. The echoes of that turbulent era now seem to be returning, raising questions about the future of French democracy. The main reason for Bayrou's downfall was his proposed budget for 2026. The budget, which he argued was necessary to address France's growing financial problems, was met with fierce resistance from nearly every corner of the political landscape. The plan called for sweeping cuts in government spending, targeting social programs, public sector jobs, and subsidies. Bayrou insisted these measures were essential to restore fiscal discipline, but many saw them as too harsh and too sudden. Opposition came from both the far left and the far right, who united in their opposition to the austerity measures. Protests erupted outside Parliament, with demonstrators accusing the government of abandoning ordinary citizens and deepening social divisions. Even conservative parties, who might have supported some fiscal restraint, balked at the scale of the proposed cuts. In a rare show of unity, they joined forces with their political rivals to bring down Bayrou's government. As Francois Bayrou prepares to step down, France is once again plunged into a period of deep uncertainty. The search for a new leader begins, but the divisions exposed by this crisis suggest that the road ahead will be anything but easy. France's public money situation is in serious trouble, and the warning signs are becoming impossible to ignore. The country, long known for its strong social safety net and ambitious public projects, is now facing a financial storm that threatens its economic stability and its place in Europe. By 2024, France is expected to spend 5.8% more than it takes in, a figure that's almost double the European Union's strict limit of 3%. This isn't just a technicality, it's a sign that France is drifting further from the fiscal discipline expected by its European partners, raising concerns in Brussels and beyond. The national debt has soared to 114% of the country's total economic output, a level that puts France among the most indebted nations in the Eurozone. What's more, France now pays higher interest rates to manage its debt than neighboring Spain, a reversal that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. These numbers are making investors increasingly nervous. Financial markets are watching France closely, worried that the country could become the next weak link in Europe's economic chain. If confidence continues to erode, it could trigger a broader crisis. In response, Prime Minister Francois Bayrou's government tried to take action. They proposed a tough budget for 2026, aiming to slash 44 billion euros in public spending, a move designed to show both the markets and the EU that France was serious about getting its finances under control. The government's goal was to bring the deficit down to 4.6% by 2026, a step in the right direction but still above the EU's target. It was a difficult plan, requiring sacrifices and tough choices across the board. But the plan quickly ran into trouble. Widespread protests erupted across the country, with citizens angry about potential cuts to public services and social programs. The political backlash was swift, and the French Parliament ultimately rejected the proposal, leaving the government with few options. Now the situation is even more urgent. Major credit rating agencies are preparing to review France's financial health, and the outcome could have serious consequences for the country's borrowing costs and reputation. Fitch will release its updated evaluation this Friday, with Moody's and S&P following soon after. These agencies will decide whether France's credit rating should be downgraded, a move that would send shockwaves through the financial system. If France's rating is cut, the cost of borrowing money will rise sharply. That means even more taxpayer money will go toward paying interest, leaving less for schools, hospitals, and other vital services. The country's financial problems could quickly spiral out of control. Whoever takes charge of France next, whether it's a new government or the current leaders, will inherit a vicious cycle of rising debt and shrinking options. The choices ahead will be tough, and the stakes couldn't be higher for the country's future. France's budget crisis has become a true national emergency, demanding urgent action and difficult decisions to protect the country's economic future and the well-being of its people. President Macron now faces one of the most challenging moments of his presidency: the daunting task of selecting his fifth prime minister in less than 2 years. This is not just a matter of finding a new face for the government. It's about trying to restore stability in a political landscape that seems more fractured than ever. There's no obvious path to calm the turmoil. The National Assembly remains deeply divided, and the usual levers of power seem less effective with each passing crisis. Macron's options are limited, and every move is fraught with risk. He could try appointing a respected expert or a moderate figure to lead the government, hoping to bridge the gap between the rival factions. But the reality is, the numbers in parliament haven't shifted, and the opposition remains strong and vocal. Any prime minister who dares to push for unpopular reforms or spending cuts will immediately face fierce resistance, not just from opposition parties, but also from the streets, where protests and strikes have become a regular feature of French political life. Forming a broad coalition, perhaps including the socialists and other centrist parties, is theoretically possible, but in practice, it would require an unprecedented level of compromise and trust among political rivals who are more accustomed to clashing than cooperating. The most drastic option, dissolving parliament and calling for snap elections, remains off the table for now. Macron is wary after his last gamble backfired, leaving him with even fewer allies and more uncertainty. New elections could easily strengthen the far left or far right, parties led by figures like Marine Le Pen or Jean-Luc Mélenchon, and force Macron into a situation where he must share power with his fiercest opponents, an outcome he desperately wants to avoid. With every option carrying significant dangers and the clock ticking, Macron is under immense pressure to make a decision that could define not just his presidency, but the future direction of France itself. France's stuck situation comes from a basic disagreement about how to fix its money problems. The middle and right-wing groups want to cut spending and make changes, aiming to make the government smaller and make those who lend money feel better. The left-wing groups are against cutting spending. Instead, they want to raise taxes on big companies and rich people. The socialists suggest a new tax on wealth, while the far right mixes popular economic ideas with anti-immigration talk, making it hard to form alliances. With no clear majority, the government is stuck between ideas that can't be made to work together. Any agreement risks making everyone unhappy, leaving France unable to act. The fight over the budget has moved to the streets, with strong worker groups organizing protests against spending cuts across the country. Big demonstrations are planned for September 10th and 18th, which will likely cause a lot of disruption. Activist groups like Bloc 12, Block Everything, are planning small spread-out blockades to make public anger even stronger. Opposition leaders Mélenchon and Le Pen are using this moment to their advantage, asking for Macron to step down and for new elections. Their demands, even though they are mostly symbolic, help spread the idea that the president is weak and make any new government formed without a public vote seem less valid. The crisis has become about who has the right to govern, not just about money policy. Even though the government fell, the money market stayed calm. Paris's main stock market index, the CAC 40, even went up a little the next morning. Investors had expected the trouble, seeing Bayrou's removal as more of the same. The cost of government bonds went up only a tiny bit, showing a slight worry rather than panic. But under this calm, worry is growing. The difference in cost between French and German bonds is at its highest in 4 months. Investors are asking for more money to lend to France, being careful because of the long-lasting political deadlock. The real test will come with Fitch's credit rating update. Any downgrade could break the market's calm. For now, the calm is misleading. It's the quiet before a possible storm. France's ability to manage its money is in question. Experts say a full money crisis is not likely for now, because France has a balanced current account and doesn't rely too much on money from other countries. But the risk will go up if the political stalemate continues. The center-left socialists have the power to decide. If they block any agreement, France could be seen as unable to be governed, which would scare investors. The deadlock is about different ideas. The right wants cuts, the left wants tax increases, and neither side will change its mind. Macron's best hope is a big group working together. But the chances are slim. If they can't agree, new elections might become necessary. The next few days will be very important for France's economic future. The problem started with the quick elections in 2024, which led to a parliament where no single group had a clear majority. Macron's middle ground group has to constantly put together different alliances, making stable governing almost impossible. The far left and far right, even though they have very different ideas, join together to bring down the government over budget cuts. France's political culture makes it hard for groups to work together, as they see agreement as a sign of weakness. Macron's position as an outsider and his decreasing power make it even harder to reach an agreement. With his last term ending in 2027, opposition parties have little reason to cooperate. The result laws can't be passed, and the country is without clear direction. France is at a crossroads. Its political inability to act threatens its economic health, how well society gets along, and its role in Europe. Not taking action risks a lower credit rating, higher costs for borrowing money, and deeper cuts to public services. Protests and divisions are increasing, while the government's right to rule is weakening. Only extraordinary political bravery and agreement can break the deadlock. A group working together, or a new agreement is needed to balance being careful with money and being fair to society. The other choice is a cycle of governments falling apart and people becoming more and more unhappy. The choices made now will decide if France becomes stable again, or falls further into uncertainty.